Muchachos y muchachas, hey guys, thanks so much for your patience here in December. It has been an incredibly busy month. I've had something to do pretty much every week and weekend, and including this weekend because it's Christmas weekend. But yesterday I hunkered down because there was a fashion rabbit hole I could not turn away from, and I'm pretty sure you're going to want to know about it. Let's start off with the names. Tom Ford, Ghislaine, Jeffy. Oh yes. Oh yes. Now that I have more of your attention, what relationship did they have with each other? How far back did they know each other? Well, there are some context clues that I would like to go through with you. But one of my curiosities as well, it is a curiosity. I'm surprised, but not surprised that the media shielded it so heavily. There was one media outlet that actually reported on one clue that I'm going to show you guys. But other than that, fashion publications, mainstream media absolutely did not touch this particular thing. What is it? Well, you're going to have to hold on to your butt, secure your wig, and stay right there. We're going to go through it. Really quick, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Support the Second. Guys, I want you to imagine a scenario where you have to self-preserve not just yourself, but your family. You've got to protect all of it. And how do you do that? Well, with your God-given right to self-defend yourself. But also that right is supported by the Second Amendment. That's why I'm such a heavy advocate, and so should you be. You can actually show your advocacy by going to supportthesecond.com. Get this coin. It's free. All you have to do is pay for shipping. On one side, it says Second Amendment, U.S. Constitution. And on the back, there is a skull with two pistols that says Second Amendment is my gun permit. Guys, I love this collector's coin. You can get it for yourself. That's supportthesecond.com. Show your advocacy just like me. All right, so let's get into this sauce here. So I just want to make a quick disclosure that any said individuals that are mentioned in this video, please refrain from harassing or berating them. This is solely to show you my concern for the lack of reporting in the media, in the fashion publications, when there clearly is something that had been going on back in the past. Now, it all starts with Tom Ford. Let's give you a little bit of history about him. Now, he became the creative director for Gucci back in 1995. Then he also became the creative director for Yves Saint Laurent in 1999. So he served as a creative director for both brands up until 2004, where he departed to start his own brand. He actually departed because he disagreed with the acquisition of Kering, that company that became controversial recently. Kering, yes, that one. So Tom Ford was actually against that acquisition, so he bailed. He said, peace out, I'm out. Now, okay, so I was perusing the fashion archives and I came across this website that used to be up called style.com. Now, in their archived website, back in 2002, it is noted that Ghislaine Maxwell attended a Gucci fashion, or it was like a Gucci cocktail party on Madison Avenue, and pictured with her, right next to her, was Tom Ford. Once again, this was back in 2002. And I will say, and I think that this part that I'm going to say is very important, just because somebody is pictured next to another person that later down the line we come to know as having more nefarious character or has maybe done more nefarious things, right? Just because that person is photographed next to another person in the past due to a social event or an industry party, I think we all need to agree, or we have to come to an understanding that just because they are photographed with them does not constitute an indictment on their character. there needs to be more context, okay? So I think I want to really put that out and drill that in your head, that we all need a lot more context when it comes to, you know, people being falsely accused and once again, like I said, their character immediately indicted just because they have a picture from the past associated with another person. Okay, that disclosure is out the way. So as I kept digging, I thought, okay, why is it that in 2002 she attended a Gucci party that was within the era of Tom Ford being the creative director, right? Okay, so that's that. But 2 years later, as it was revealed within a trove of documents, you know, whenever there were documents floating around about Jeffy and Ghislaine, you know, Ghislaine had her trial, Jeffy, there were unsealed documents, you know, here and there. In one of the trove of documents unsealed was this, there were various notepad coded messages. You guys remember this? There were a bunch of messages that Jeffy's assistant would write to him, or Ghislaine would write to him. They would specify particular characteristics of, girls, females, things like this. Yes, it was very cryptic. In one of these notepadded messages was mentioned Tom Ford. Yes, look at this Daily Mail headline. It says, "Messages left for Jeffy," yes, I have to say it like that, "suggested his friend might be procuring 2 8-year-old niñas for the you know what he is, to 𝘬𝘴𝘦 state court docs filed by the victim's lawyer." Okay, and then in the first bullet point, this is what I mean, okay? Now, I know Daily Mail, at least we can say kudos to Daily Mail, because they were the only publication out there that I personally saw, and you guys can go out there and you can go peruse the web for this, because I definitely tried in every single corner and crevice of it. But it was in this first bullet point where it mentioned a message taken from Jeffy's Palm Beach mansion in 2005 reveals calls from Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, and visits from Tom Ford. In a specific citation of this, in the article, it mentions the message pad was first obtained by the police during their search for Epstein's Palm Beach mansion in October of 2005, short after they were tipped off. Fast forward, a message from Ghislaine in August of that year, so that's August 2005, reveals that Jeffy and his age-appropriate companion were hosting Tom Ford in Palm Beach. Now, I want to read this out for you. There are some words that are kind of illegible, but I think you guys are going to get the gist of it. It says, "She let Larry, who used to be Jeffy's pilot, go. The only flight to PB, which stands for Palm Beach, leaves at 3:15. Not heard from Tom Ford. If you call at," illegible, I can't read that, "she will pick up TF, which is Tom Ford, alone in the helicopter. If you want to choose, please call GM, which is Ghislaine, you know what, back." Right? So there you have it. Okay, it's corroborated by media who had access to these trove of documents. So this, to me, is what just spun me down the rabbit hole. What do you mean, Tom Ford? How is this not on the, at least online publications of every fashion media house? How? Is it because they wanted to shield? Is it because they are also implicated in it? But this is revolutionary that Tom Ford was all in this as well. And listen, from this, I can't indict Tom Ford's character either, because we don't know what happened after this message. Did Tom Ford ever pick up the phone? Did he ever answer Ghislaine? Did he ignore her, right? But there are some additional context clues that I want you to consider, as I considered myself. So there's one thing besides I'm sure some fashion connections that Jeffy and Tom Ford had in common. And that is New Mexico. You guys remember Jeffy? He had Zorro Ranch, and there are a lot of horrific testimonies coming out of that. Evidence was released on that, photos, things like this. Well, it was to my surprise, as I learned this yesterday, that Tom Ford owned a ranch right next door to Jeffy. And I was mind blown because of, just a particular, a characteristic of their properties that had something in common. But take a look at this. This is just 26 minutes away from each other. That's a very quick ride. Now, not only that, so Tom Ford actually acquired, redesigned, and renamed this ranch, and he renamed it Cerro Pelon. The ranch had approximately 21,000 acres. Now, there's a portion of this ranch that surprised me. It was a movie ranch called Silverado. That's right. The Silverado was on Tom Ford's property. Now, this little western town that existed on Tom Ford's ranch property was actually a very notable set in various movies. I'm going to list or put the list out right here in front of me. But some notable ones were Silverado back in 1985, All the Pretty Horses, Wild Wild West, and Thor. Somebody was onto this about 3 years ago. This is a YouTuber by the name of Unabated Mysteries that actually traced some of the trails that look to be connected from, or they look to be, right? At least by optics. There are trails that look to be connected from Jeffy's mansion, ranch, right, to Tom Ford's property. Now, make of that what you will, but I just thought that I'd point that out. It could be, okay, just to play advocate here, it could be natural infrastructure or road infrastructure of some type, just giving it the benefit of the doubt. But I just wanted to point that out, that it does exist. And because we are on the topic of property here, now it is also noted in a deposition in 2009 that Larry Wisowski, who is or used to be Jeffy's pilot, actually was gifted 40 acres of land of the Zorro Ranch. And here is the deposition here. You guys can pause this video and read it. But basically, Larry Wisowski admits in this deposition that he was gifted 40 acres by Jeffy. Now, it is no surprise to me that not one fashion publication covered this topic. I mean, it would be in their best interest to, if they had any fiber of integrity, but they didn't. And think about all of the fashion publications. What are the ones that come to your mind? Vogue, Glamour, Allure, I mean, the list goes on, I'm sure, but none of them, not one, mentioned this connection here with one of their most beloved designers. Remember when I pointed out this picture of thestyle.com hosting this image of Tom Ford and Ghislaine at this Gucci party back in 2002? Well, as I was continued in my research, I learned that style.com was actually owned by Condé Nast. Now, Condé Nast is like a luxury fashion, well, it's not luxury fashion really, but it's a media group. And they actually own a bunch of media outlets. I'm just going to name some off of this list: Allure, Glamour, GQ, GQ Style, Teen Vogue, The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Vogue, Vogue Business, Vogue Global Network. You're telling me it's quite ironic that style.com, which was once owned by Condé Nast, hosted a picture of Tom Ford with Ghislaine, and somehow that just was undetected? You can't trick me. So back to Tom Ford, he actually first listed this ranch property on the market back in 2016 for a whopping $75 million. Now, whether this is relevant or not, in 2019, months after Jeffy got arrested for said atrocities, he actually slashed the price by $27 million in order to sell the property. Like I said, I don't know if it's relevant or not, but just know that that happened. And look, I'm not trying to make assumptions about Tom Ford. It's just an additional context clue to all of this is that him and his partner were both mentioned in Jeffy's little black book. It says here by The Sun, American designer Tom Ford and his husband, fashion journalist Richard Buckley, are listed among Jeffy's contacts, right? Under the word Gucci, where Ford once served as a creative director, is a phone number and an email for the pair. Now, again, he's in the little black book, right? Him and his partner, which, by the way, his partner did pass away. But, you know, they're both listed in the little black book. And then there's a notepad message that mentions Tom Ford possibly being hosted by this nefarious couple. What was that about? How come Tom Ford never came out to, you know, talk on this matter? At the very least, look, at one point, I didn't know that Ghislaine was into all of this or that Jeffy was doing all these things, right? Just giving the benefit of the doubt of this, you know, the most optimal scenario. Now that I've learned of all of this, I decry this horrific crime. You understand where I'm coming from? At the very least, Tom Ford could have come out to address his possible acquaintance or, you know, past acquaintance with Jeffy and Ghislaine, but we've never seen that, right? So it looks worse when internet sleuths such as myself have to go and follow the rabbit hole to come across these details and illustrate it in a video. It just looks worse when it's not addressed by the person themselves. I just want to make one comparison. I don't know that it's relative at all. I just find similarities in these architectural details, I guess I can call it. But we already kind of went over Silverado and it existing on Tom Ford's previous property or previously owned property. Now, Jeffy actually had a small western town on his property, on his Zorro Ranch, called Cowboy Village. And I believe it's a little bit smaller. There's only like 2 images of this Cowboy Village that float around the internet. But as you can see, it is Western themed. So I found that pretty interesting that they have these small villages. Of course, Silverado is much more vast than this other little village town that Jeffy had on his property. And look, I don't know if this is maybe something like rich New Mexico ranch mansion owners commonly have. I don't know. But I just, once again, just thought that that was an interesting detail. Now, a reminder about Cowboy Village, it is alleged, and now Cowboy Village exists on Zorro Ranch, which belonged to Jeffy. It was alleged by some of his previous estate workers that Bill and Hillary, our favorite people, used to vacate, along with their daughter Chelsea, used to vacation there pretty often. So, I mean, whether relative or not, I don't know. I don't know if they ever had, you know, the relations or what. And also to remind you that it was at the Zorro Ranch where Jeffy alleged that he wanted to see the human race with his SPERM. Yeah, that was in the New York Times. Jeffy had some really interesting ideas for the human race. We'll just say that. Maybe we'll save that for another topic. Speaking of fashion, if you love this dress that I am wearing, you can get it at reddingboutique.com. I'm going to put the direct link in my description below. Use code RED50 for the holidays for 50% off. So Tom Ford wasn't absent of total controversy, right? The media actually did cover this one where He had a couple photographers that were later called out for predation. One of them is more infamous, Terry Richardson, who has had multiple allegations put up against him. Now, Tom Ford made the news actually this time because he defended Terry Richardson, saying that, you know, he had never seen Terry do what he was being accused to do. I'm just paraphrasing, but that's what was included in the New York Times interview that they did with him. And Terry Richardson actually did shoot Gucci back into, well, he shot him multiple times with Gucci, but back in 2001, there was one very spicy image that looked like a certain silhouette of a, you know, of a thing. Now, so Terry Richardson has been known, or, you know, I think his work speaks for itself, that he has been over spiced with his shoots and very questionable. But there was one other photographer that brought controversy to the craft of photography, and that was Mario Testino. Now, Mario Testino was actually brought upon the brand of Gucci back in 1995. He brought Mario Testino, or I'm talking about Tom Ford, brought Mario Testino on board with the Gucci brand. Now, later down the line, male models actually called Mario Testino out for, once again, exploitation and predation, saying that, you know, he would exploit the males in certain scenarios, in certain shoots. And you can probably use your dark imagination of, you know, how that led from one thing to the other. But these male models eventually did speak up against Mario Testino. Now, the interesting thing about that is two of the models that accused Mario Testino actually modeled in Gucci campaign shoots in the 90s. And that was during the time, I believe, if it was 1995, between 1995 and 1999, that was the time of Tom Ford's era in being a creative director. So it makes me curious. You know, there's a lot to this rabbit hole that I still have a lot of questions about. For instance, with Silverado movie ranch, right? Like, for it to host all of these movies and have so many Hollywood industry professionals, including the actors, actresses, the producers, the directors, so close to Zorro Ranch at the time, it just makes me wonder, right? Like, it was literally a drive over to Zorro Ranch. Did anybody else know, right? Is this all interconnected somehow? That's something that I cannot prove concretely, because guess what? A lot of these documents are still sealed up within a lot of the legal proceedings. But that's something that I'm going to let you come to your own assessment about. What do you think about this entire rabbit hole, guys? I was absolutely shocked. My wig was snatched and thrown across the room as I was doing more and more research down this rabbit hole. But Tom Ford, Ghislaine, Jeff, I mean, these things are undeniable. There was some sort of acquaintance there, right? At the very least. But what more happened? I wish Tom Ford would have come out and addressed that, but unfortunately, it's had to be excavated by internet sleuth. This one right here. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This was a thread, by the way, on Twitter. Be sure to follow me there, as well as my Instagram. That's where I post my digs and my posts throughout the day. With that being said, thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your love. I love you all. Thanks so much. I will catch you in the next video.